Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're kicking off a brand new block focused entirely on web scraping and HTTP. And we're starting with the absolute foundational tool for directly communicating with the internet, the Python requests library. If you've ever wanted your Python code to seamlessly talk to the web, pull down data, and act just like a normal browser, well, this is exactly where it begins.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's exactly how we're going to seamlessly pivot your mindset today. First, we'll look at flipping the web relationship, then the anatomy of HTTP requests, followed by a look at HTTP for humans. After that, we'll navigate some real-world networks and wrap up with web scraping best practices.
Starting right off with Part 1, Flipping the Web Relationship.
Throughout our previous web development block covering frameworks like Django and FastAPI, we were specifically writing the server-side code, right? We were building applications just to receive incoming requests and return the appropriate responses. But to really understand this paradigm shift, we're going to seamlessly pivot your mindset. The request library flips that previous relationship completely around. Now we're on the client side. Your Python program is acting exactly like a standard web browser fetching a web page. You are now the one knocking on the door, sending requests out to a separate server, and processing whatever response comes back.
So, the crucial point is understanding Part 2, the anatomy of HTTP requests. Before we even look at the library itself, we need to ground ourselves in what an HTTP request actually consists of. Every single HTTP request includes a few core components. First up is the method. Are you using a GET method just to retrieve data? Or maybe a POST method, which sends new data directly to a given server? Next, you need a target URL, which indicates exactly where that request should be sent. And finally, you have optional headers for things like authentication or identifying your user agent, and an optional request body for any new data you're trying to submit. And of course, for every request, there's a response. The server responds with a status code indicating whether that particular request succeeded, like your classic 200 success, or failed, like a 404 not found. Alongside that code is the returned data itself. Frequently, this data is formatted as JSON, which is exactly what we discussed extensively together in our previous FastAPI and Django REST framework explainers. Which brings us to Part 3, Enter HTTP for humans.
Now, you might be wondering, why do we need an external tool when Python already has built-in networking tools? Well, it all comes down to simplicity. Python's built-in year-old module works perfectly fine, but it requires writing considerably more verbose, complicated code just to accomplish everyday tasks. Python requests, on the other hand, was explicitly created with the deliberate goal of making HTTP requests feel as simple and intuitive as humanly possible. And this brilliantly illustrates how successful this specific design philosophy actually is. The official documentation literally describes it as HTTP for humans. It acts as the ultimate translator for complex HTTP interactions, taking all that messy reality of network communication and providing a remarkably clean, intuitive interface for us. Let's look at the literal, single-line simplicity of this in action. Step 1, you run pip install requests. Step 2, you simply type response equals requests.get URL. And there you go. That's literally it. That single line of code handles connecting, sending, and waiting for the response entirely under the hood. Once that happens, working with the resulting response object is an absolute breeze. It gives you convenient access to everything you need. The .status underscore code gives you that numerical success or fail code. The .text method gives you the raw returned content as a Python string, and particularly convenient is .json. This automatically parses that returned content directly as JSON and returns it to you as a native Python dictionary. This connects directly back to our earlier API lessons, and it is a real game changer. Of course, many real-world requests specifically need to include additional data, right? Requests easily handles this too. For a GET request, you just pass a dictionary into the params argument, and it automatically does the heavy lifting of URL encoding for you. For a POST request, you can use the data argument for standard form data or the JSON argument to automatically format your dictionary payload as JSON and correctly set the appropriate headers entirely behind the scenes. Okay, let's jump into Part 4, Navigating Real-World Networks. Because let's face it, the internet is messy. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how requests helps you survive these real-world hurdles. When you're web scraping, many websites will actively block scripts unless you use custom headers to mimic a real human browser. They will flat out refuse to respond to requests that clearly look like an automated Python script. But by passing a simple dictionary to the headers argument, requests lets you set a custom user agent to mimic a genuine, real web browser, totally preventing you from being instantly blocked.
Another massive real-world hurdle is authentication. So many modern APIs specifically require it. Request provides seamless, built-in support for simple, basic authentication, as well as modern token-based authentication, where you include a secret token directly within your request headers. If you remember, this directly connects back to the exact same patterns we discussed in our earlier Django REST framework explainer.
Look, furthermore, real-world network requests will inevitably fail eventually. A server might be down, held together by duct tape, your connection drops, or a resource just vanishes. The genuinely convenient solution here is raise_for_status. When you combine that with standard Python try and accept blocks, it automatically raises a proper Python exception when an error code is returned, allowing you to gracefully handle the failure instead of your whole program just crashing out of nowhere. As you build more advanced scrapers, you're definitely going to need to utilize requests.session. A session is an incredibly vital object that persists your settings and cookies directly across multiple separate requests. If you need to hit the exact same website 50 times, a session closely mimics precisely how a genuine web browser naturally behaves, smoothly remembering that you're logged in across several separate page visits. And here's a vital number for any real-world script: 10. By default, you should know that requests will wait indefinitely for a response. No joke. This can cause your program to completely freeze if a target server stops responding. You absolutely must explicitly set a timeout argument, for example, timeout equals 10, to ensure your script knows when to automatically fail and just move on.
Let's move to part 5 and see how this builds into actionable web scraping best practices. We can summarize these specific techniques as the absolute essentials whenever you're interacting with external websites that you personally do not directly control. Number 1, always set a proper user agent header so you aren't immediately blocked. Number 2, always include a reasonable timeout value so your program doesn't hang. Number 3, use sessions efficiently for multiple requests to the exact same site. And number 4, gracefully handle your errors using try and accept blocks combined with raise_for_status.
Looking at the big picture, requests sits firmly as the essential, foundational first step in our web scraping block pipeline. Step 1 is fetching that raw HTML, and that is all requests. Step 2 will be parsing and extracting the meaningful data directly out of that HTML, which we're going to tackle in upcoming lessons using Beautiful Soup and Scrapey. And step 3 will look at HTTPX, a really cool modern alternative to requests built with full native support for asynchronous programming, which connects right back to our earlier Starlet explainer. So, we'll leave you with this final provocative thought. You've built the foundation and caught the raw data using Python requests. Are you ready to extract its secrets? If this explainer helped build your foundation and web scraping in HTTP, make sure you're subscribed because we still have 65 more amazing packages ahead of us in this series. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.